Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to remember those killed at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut in 2012, just 6 years ago. Tomorrow will be that anniversary of that horrible day when America lost 20 first graders and 6 adults in one of the worst mass shootings in our nation's history. Since 2012, I've kept, and I know others have done similar things to remind us, I've kept just a one page from a newspaper on my desk here in the Russell building, and I won't show all of it, but here's the top half of it. It's obviously yellowed from 6 years. It just happens to be the Wall Street Journal dated Monday, December 17th, 2012. At the top of the page it says Connecticut school shooting, and the headline there just says 2 words, shattered lives, and then gives a photograph of almost every child and every adult. They missed a few because of the timing of this, but then has a biography of each individual killed, and as I said, 20 of them were children. We have to remember tragedies like this to remind ourselves of our obligation on many issues, but this is certainly one of them. I wanted to first start by reading the names of all those 26 Americans who were killed on that day. And I'll just read through them and also indicate, after reading each name, I'll also note the age of the individual on that horrible day in December of 2012. Charlotte Bacon, 6 years old. Daniel Barden, 7. Rachel Diavino, 29. Olivia Engel, 6. Josephine Gay, 7. Dylan Hockley, 6. Dawn Lafferty Hotchsprung, 47. Madeline Shue, 6. Catherine Hubbard, 6. Chase Kowalski, 7. Jesse Lewis, 6. Anna Marquez Green, age 6. James Mattioli, 6. Grace McDonald, 7. Anne Marie Murphy, 52. Emily Parker, 6. Jack Pinto, 6. Noah Posner, 6. Caroline Previti, 6. Jessica Rakos, 6. Avielle Richmond, 6. Lauren Rousseau, 30. Mary Sherlock, 56. Victoria Soto, 27. Benjamin Wheeler, 6. And Allison Wyatt, age 6. Those are the 26 individuals. There are so many ways to express our sorrow, to continue mourning as we did as a nation. I can't even imagine what each family had to live through and still lives through today, and how that community has had to endure in that moment of horror, those days of horror and mourning and sadness, and all these years later. The great recording artist Bruce Springsteen, after the 9/11 attacks, wrote a number of songs reflecting upon that tragedy. One of the songs that he wrote, at least the lyrics that I remember, probably capture the same sentiment that we all think about. We're thinking about that kind of a tragedy. The name of the song is You're Missing, and the refrain of the song goes like this: you're missing when I shut out the lights, you're missing when I close my eyes, You're missing when I see the sunrise. And I'm sure that's been the circumstance for those families. Every day, missing that loved one. For 20 of those families, it was missing a loved one who was age 6 or age 7. And for 6 other families, missing an adult family member of various ages. Now, we have a lot to do in this body, not only in the next couple of days, but certainly as we start both a new year and a new Congress. This scourge of violence, which has consumed our country for so many years now, should be at the top of that list of priority issues that we focus on. Just think about it this way. These 20 children who died at Sandy Hook would be in the 7th grade right now. And as we still mourn, we must make sure that we come together to make sure that no other family has to endure a tragedy like that. The shooting at Sandy Hook was a turning point for me as a public official, and I'm sure a turning point for many Americans about what our obligation is to respond to this problem. This tragedy in Connecticut fundamentally changed the way I view both our nation's response to gun violence and my own responsibility as a public official. I believe that each of us has an obligation to help to take action, to work as members of the United States Senate. I would include members of the House, of course, and the executive branch. We must continually ask ourselves a number of questions. One of those questions surely is there nothing our nation can do to try to prevent this kind of tragedy or other tragedies that we'll note in a few moments? But is there nothing we can do to prevent this? That there is no law, no action, no policy change that we can come together on to at least reduce the likelihood that we'll have another mass shooting in a grade school or in a lot of other places around our country? Because some people here in Washington seem to believe that there literally is nothing you can do. The most powerful country in the world that has solved some big problems, haven't solved all of them, we've solved some pretty tough problems in this chamber and in the other body, the House, and working together on a number of big issues over the years. But on this one, some people in Washington just throw their hands up and say, there's nothing we can do. Absolutely not a single law that we can pass other than enforce existing law. That's all we can do, and we hope that enforcement will reduce the likelihood. But if it doesn't, then we just have to throw up our hands. I don't believe that. I don't think many Americans believe that, no matter what side of the political aisle that they're on. I believe we have an obligation to take a couple of steps. The first one ought to be easy, because some of the data tells us that it's supported by 90% of Americans, or maybe even more than 90%, and that's universal background checks. We made we undertook an effort in the Senate back in 2013 in the aftermath of the Sandy Hook massacre. And we made progress on getting bipartisan support for a universal background check bill. But we haven't done a lot since then in the United States Senate on that issue. So that's one bill we could vote on in 2019. And I would hope the majority leader would schedule a debate on that bill, whatever version that we have now in front of us or will in the new Congress. We would schedule a debate and have a vote. People can, obviously, senators can vote any way they want. But let's have a debate and let's vote on universal background checks. Is that a magic wand that will wipe out this problem forever? No. But background checks will make it less likely that you're going to have the kind of mass shootings we've not only endured as a nation, but have grown, unfortunately, tragically accustomed to. I believe as well, and I know there are plenty of people who disagree with me, but we ought to have a debate on and vote on another issue, banning military-style weapons. I understand that we've got, by some estimates, double-figure millions of these weapons already on our streets. I get that. But does that mean we should continue down this road and have 20 million of them, and then 25 million of those weapons on our streets, and then 30 and 40 and 50 and 60 million? Just throw up our hands and say, it's all we can do, that we have to have tens of millions of military-style weapons, weapons that belong on a battlefield, not on our streets and our communities and our neighborhoods. That would be a good debate to have on that bill. We ought to have a debate and a vote on a limitation on the magazine capacity, so you don't have one person who can spray hundreds of bullets in a matter of moments. Is there nothing we can do about that? The greatest country in the world can't do anything about these issues, these votes? How about preventing people on the terrorist watch list from getting their hands on a firearm? We made a determination after 9/11 that we were going to take certain steps, even against political pressure not to take certain steps, to protect our nation from terrorists. One of them was, if you are a terrorist, we're going to do everything we can to prevent you from getting on an airplane. Or if we have a reasonable suspicion that you're a terrorist, we're going to try to prevent you from being on an airplane so we don't have another 9/11. The same country that did that so far, because of inaction by the United States Congress over many years, allows that same individual who's too dangerous, we've deemed them too dangerous to get on an airplane, can get a firearm because we haven't plugged that loophole yet. We've tried a couple of times, but not nearly enough. So let's at least have a debate on a few of these issues and have up or down votes. If you want to vote against them, fine. But let's not pretend that we're dealing with an issue when we don't even have a debate and we don't even have votes. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I'm sure it doesn't make sense to Americans, no matter what side of the debate they're on. So we can't simply throw up our hands and do nothing as thousands of lives are lost each year. Why not try to do something to reduce that number? So we need a sustained debate and a series of votes. It's a good time, by the way, coming up. New year, new Congress. 2019, brand new Congress. We could start fresh by putting these issues on the floor of the United States Senate. We need to make sure that the American people know where their legislators, in this case, federal legislators, members of the House and the Senate, where those members of Congress stand, so they can be held accountable. That's as American as anything we can do in this body. But we need to do it for the children and the staff of those who were killed at Sandy Hook Elementary School. We need to make sure that their lives are remembered, not just in mourning, not just in recognition of a tragedy, but are actually remembered by way of our action, of taking action, of doing something substantial that will reduce the likelihood. Now, we've had too many of these tragedies just in the last couple of years. I'll do a partial list or a partial itemization of other tragedies, not all of them, but just a few. Orlando, we know these cities by the tragedies that took place in these cities. Orlando, in a nightclub. Charleston, in a house of worship. Sulphur Springs, Las Vegas, Parkland, Thousand Oaks. In my home state of Pennsylvania, just now, only a couple of weeks ago, I guess almost 2 months ago now, the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, where the killer came into another house of worship on a Saturday morning and gunned down people who range in age in that circumstance, not children, but range in age from, I guess, mid-50s all the way to to late 80s, early 90s in age, 11 people. So whether it's Sandy Hook Elementary School or Tree of Life Synagogue or a lot of places in between, and I'm just mentioning the one since 2006 roughly, there were plenty before that. We have to not just remember, but take action. In 2018, just 1 year, not yet completed, but so far in 2018, there have been 13,743 gun deaths and 26,581 injuries. This is a uniquely American problem. This doesn't happen around the world. It's happening here. That is yet another reason for the American people to demand that we do our job here in the Senate and in the House and in the executive branch. If it's a uniquely American problem, Americans should try to solve it, or at least get on the road to solving it. I hope we would have a measure of satisfaction if we passed just one bill in 2019, even if nothing else happens for years, but maybe 25 years ago, or 25 years from now, we could prevent one school shooting, prevent just one shooting in a synagogue where 11 people lose their lives in a house of worship, prevent a school or another place in our community from being, unfortunately, etched in that wall of tragedy and loss and horror forever. The name of a town, the name of a community, remembered only in some cases because of the violence that took place there. And I'll say it again, this is a uniquely American problem, and we've got to try to solve it together. So the status quo, to say the status quo is unacceptable is a terrible understatement, but that's the truth, and I think people understand that. Mr. President, I know that this is an issue where people on both sides care very deeply about. We haven't come together yet to take very much action. If you look at the record on taking action on gun violence, I hate to use the word, but it's true, it's pathetic in terms of federal action. But I am still hopeful that the American people will continue to demand more of all of us, both parties, both houses, and two branches of the federal government, coming together not just to mourn and to remember and to pay tribute and to offer prayers and condolence, but to take action, to do what Americans do when we're faced with a problem, to take action, just like we did after 9/11. We didn't throw up our hands and say, this is just the new normal. We said, no, we're going to take action to try to stop it, or at least reduce the likelihood. We can do the same on this issue of gun violence. Mr. President, I would yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.